Hello again, and welcome to the F1 Word. My name is Elizabeth Blackstock, U.S. editor over at PlanetF1.com, and the 2025 Italian Grand Prix really got me thinking about how we should be careful equating shorter races to more compelling races. But first, before we dig in, let me back up just a little bit, because you're probably wondering who would even think that. It seems like the whole idea that F1 could potentially one day consider shortening the lengths of its Grand Prix stems from a misunderstanding of a quote from Formula One's CEO Stefano Domenicali. See, before this past weekend's race at Monza, Domenicali sat down with a select group of journalists to talk about F1's vision for its future. I'm sure you have noticed just how dramatically the sport has grown in the past few years and how much the demographics have changed. F1 has finally cracked the American market, and some critical choices have attracted more women and more young folk than ever before. Just from my own experience as a human being living in Texas, 10 years ago, no one in Austin had any idea that there was a major international sporting event taking place over at the Circuit of the Americas. And if you tried to explain the concept to Formula One to someone back then, they'd inevitably just say, "Oh, you mean like NASCAR." Now, just about every time I leave the house, I can spot someone wearing Formula One merch. It's been a huge transformation. And naturally, when demographics change, it's a really great opportunity for a sport to take a critical look at itself to determine the best ways to continue moving forward. What's working? What's not working? How could we turn this audience we already have into more dedicated fans? That's what Stefano Domenicali wanted to talk about during this media day, but I think a lot of onlookers really latched on to a few of the specific things he said. Domenicali told journalists, quote, "Promoters and fans want action, and now that they've started to understand it's possible, our surveys show the vast majority of the audience wants the drivers to fight for a result." He also added that modern events may be a bit too long for younger audiences, and that highlights do really well because, quote, "there's a large segment that only wants to see the key moments." Now, a lot of people have taken this to mean that Domenicali is advocating for shorter races, which is not the case. F1 has made it pretty clear it's not going to be trimming down the duration of events anytime soon. But that being said, if you're a fan of American sports like the Major League Baseball series, then you know that there are executives out there who try to find ways to shorten games through things like pitch clocks because they think that making games shorter will get more people to watch the full game. I mean, making a seemingly boring sport more exciting was literally the entire premise of Happy Gilmore 2. But for me, the 2025 Italian Grand Prix really illustrated why it would be a mistake to assume shorter races necessarily make for more compelling events. Now, the first 4 laps of the race, they were great, chock full of action. We had chaos into the first chicane, passes and repasses for position, swaps for the lead, and daring maneuvers up and down the field. Pole sitter Max Verstappen ended up filtering back into the lead after cutting the chicane and having to cede position to Lando Norris. And, well, for the next 40-odd laps, that was pretty much it. We had some McLaren drama in the closing stages when a slow pit stop for Lando Norris saw his teammate Oscar Piastri pass him for second place, which resulted in McLaren requesting the drivers trade places, and then the drivers did change places, but that was it. For the rest of the event, all of those 40-some laps in between the start and finish, the high-speed, slipstreamy nature of Monza saw the field string out, and a lack of a safety car meant the Italian Grand Prix lasted exactly 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 24.325 seconds from lights out to checkered flag. As far as Grand Prix go, that's pretty dang short. It literally did just set the record for being the shortest ever fully completed F1 race in the championship's 75-year history. And I think I'm speaking for plenty of us who watched that race when I say I spent most of it waiting for something to happen. That's the big issue I have with any arguments people might make about race duration. Proponents of those shorter races often argue attention spans are shrinking, primarily among the younger segments of the fan base that F1 is trying to attract. Because of that, we should try to avoid lengthy sporting events and to pack in as much drama into that short period of time as possible. But with something like F1, I just can't see race duration having any impact on race quality. The first and the last 3 laps of the Italian Grand Prix were interesting, and I have a feeling that would have still been the case if the race had lasted for 3 hours or if it had only lasted for 20 minutes. That's because the duration of a race has far less to do with the quality of an event than I think almost any other factor. That includes car size and weight, aerodynamic performance, sporting regulations, circuit construction, and so much more. You can kind of think of a Grand Prix like a movie. If the acting isn't convincing, the plot is messy, and the visuals are confusing, then it doesn't really matter if the film lasts for 90 minutes or 4 hours. Viewers just won't care, not until filmmakers address the foundational elements of crafting that movie. I grant that this is way easier said than done, and I don't envy anyone at Formula One or the FIA who have to sit down and try to craft regulatory and sporting regulations that will enable tons of spicy on-track action without compromising the integrity of F1's innovative heritage. It's way easier to fiddle with event formats, but I don't think that's the way forward. If you need a key example of what happens when a motorsport discipline prioritizes spectacle over substance, then you need to look no further than NASCAR. Now, I love NASCAR and I watch it every weekend, so my goal here is not to bash stock car racing. I firmly believe that motorsport should be composed of all different kinds of disciplines, but loving something does not mean accepting its misguided flaws just for the sake of it, and I know that I'm not the only NASCAR fan out there who believes many of the sport's format tweaks recently have degraded the racing product in a specific effort to attract more interest. F1 fans know what it's like to see a championship dominated by a single driver. NASCAR fans do too, but over in the Cup Series, management tried to inject life into the sport by introducing a playoff system that determines the overall series champion based on a progressive series of eliminations. In its current incarnation, that means that 16 drivers are eligible for the playoffs, and every 3 races during the playoffs, 4 drivers are eliminated, until, at the season finale, only 4 drivers remain. Then heading into that last race, those drivers' points are scrapped and they're all made equal so that when they hit the track, it's the driver who finishes highest who wins the title. Yes, the playoffs introduced a ton of storylines that otherwise wouldn't have existed, but now it means that the best driver in the sport is no longer guaranteed to become champion. The guy with the most wins all year could have like 2 bad races during the first round of playoffs and find himself eliminated, even if he was otherwise really dominant. The playoffs themselves had mixed results, and fans still weren't tuning in. So the Cup Series then introduced something it calls stages. Effectively, each race is now subdivided into 3 or 4 sections by mandatory caution periods. Drivers know when NASCAR will throw a yellow, and teams plan their strategies knowing that they'll have 2 chances to effectively take a free pit stop during the race. But the reason NASCAR wanted stages was not for any of those reasons, but to effectively force at least 2 restarts during each race. And we know restarts guarantee more on-track action. But then, that wasn't enough, and NASCAR was miffed that sometimes its races ended under a yellow flag. As a result, the sport introduced overtime. Let's say a 200-lap race is yellow flagged on lap 197 for a crash that will take 5 laps to clean up. Rather than letting the laps run out and the race finish, NASCAR will initiate overtime in order to allow cleanup to take place before the field lines up and restarts for a 2-lap shootout to the finish. But if there's another yellow flag before the drivers see the white flag signaling the final lap of the race, then it's time for another overtime restart. And NASCAR will do that over and over again until the field takes the white flag. These changes added nothing to the quality of the NASCAR Cup Series championship. They were designed to cause drama because drama makes for a compelling highlight reel. And this is the slippery slope that I don't want to see Formula One fall into as it looks to prioritize compelling on-track action. Yes, evolution is critical for any sport, but I think we also need to know that Formula One is more popular than it's ever been before. That means fans are responding to what currently exists. They're not tuning in on Sunday because they think the existing product needs this big spectacular overhaul. And when fans do ask for changes, they aren't asking for the racing product to feel cheapened by gimmicks. They want to see something substantial. But now I turn this over to you guys watching the video. Do you think F1 should consider shortening races in an effort to make them more exciting? Or do you think there are other ways to improve the racing product? I'm really interested in hearing from other diehard fans of the sport, so please head down to the comments and tell me what you think. And on your way there, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the F1 Word. I'm passing the reins back over to Sean now, but you can find more work from me, Elizabeth Blackstock, over on planetf1.com. I'll see you next time.